Welcome to the League of Women Voters annual meeting for 2024. My name is Elaine Manley, and I'm the co-president of our local league. I'm delighted today to have two guest speakers speaking from our Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters, and I'd like to do the formal introduction of Mike, and then he's going to do the formal introduction of Elenita. So Mike Fong is the Election Division Manager with the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters Office. His work focuses on election logistics, voting systems, and election management systems. He started this career with San Francisco County Department of Election in 1998. And he's been with Santa Clara County ROV since the year 2000. He is a certified elections professional, elections administrator. That's quite a bit, excuse me. Graduate, let me try that again. He is a certified elections registration administrator nationally, as well as a graduate of California Professional Elections Administration Certification Program. Okay, good. There we go. Yes. And he advocates voter education and election understanding by speaking at local civics organizations, county programs, and other venues where voter education is not readily available. So I do present Mike. Would you like them to ask questions as they go along or at the end?
In the end, please.
At the end. All right, save your questions for the end. Over to you, Mike. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for me and my colleagues to be here. And again, I do represent the Registrar of Voters Office. I will be giving you a lot of information about our security, how we deal with our office, the people, and the vote centers. The majority of the information that I will be providing you may answer a lot of your questions right off the bat. However, after I do my presentation, if you feel that there are a few more that you want to ask, by all means, I will save some a little bit of time. There is a few slides that I left in there in case there was no question. It's called myth 1 through 4, or myth 1 through 5, that if there's no question, I try to explain that as like a generic um, understanding, right? However, I'm sure some of you have great questions, or what about this, or I thought this, or I thought that. By all means, take this opportunity to ask. I will be more than happy to try and explain on all that we do here. Okay, so right off the bat, um, Registrar of Voters Office, our mission is to protect and ensure communities' right to participate in a fair, inclusive, accurate, and transparent elections. To achieve this, we do follow all of the applicable laws and maintain numerous procedures, processes to safeguard all aspects of our election infrastructure and the integrity of election. Meaning, it's not just one thing or one law, right? We protect the system, we protect the process, we protect the voters, we protect the workers, we protect our building that we work, and even the machines that we have. So we do many, many ways of securing so that when you vote, it is private and it is safe, meaning, it's not just anyone who can see what your vote is, and you can vote in the privacy of confidentiality of your vote, right? And then once it's gotten to our office, it is counted properly. And there are some, I'm sure there'll be questions about how I count will come along later, and I'll explain it to you. And when you make a selection, or when you try to make a selection, we do our best to be in your shoe to give you that vote. And at the end of the day, we make decision on the on the favor of the voter. It's not a decision of favor of me or our office, it's for you. Okay? I'll explain that a little bit more. So, in order to achieve all of this, we do many, many partnerships. And the partnership, I'm not going to read through it all, but kind of going up the ladder, right? We have the local jurisdictions like cities, special districts, and then we go up to the county offices, and then we go up to the state level offices, and even higher, we go up to the federal offices now, because the election security and the way we vote and how our vote is very important. The federal offices, they've always been partnership, but they've gotten more in the picture itself. So believe it or not, Department of Homeland Security actually have teams of people that work with all of the Registrar of Voters Office to make sure that informations are disseminated. Information that if we had any problems or challenges or possibly somebody's breaking the law, what we do is we talk with each other and we pass on that information so that everybody's aware, right? Everybody takes steps to either what we call the word hardening our security or make adjustments to our procedure or make adjustments to the things that we got to do so that you have a safe voting and positive voting experience. So as you can see, everything that I'm going to talk about today, it's okay, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Everything that I'm talking about today, many of the details, many of the procedures that we have, you can find it on our website. Everything is written out. We put it in informational web page. We also even put it like an FAQ type. If you say, how do we secure the voting system? There's actually a question for that. Or how do we count our ballot? There's a question for that. Or is there more than one way to vote? We actually have a question for that. And it's under this link. Basically, if you go to sccvote.org, it will get you to many, many information, including how to vote, what is election, what it is about, past election, the results, um, any question about how to vote, where to vote, and, how do we handle ballots and things like that. Next. So for our online, right, the information that we give to the public and you, we do have election security webpage that is dedicated, okay, for the security details about what we do. We also have FAQs, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, and to help with this, for some of us who like to read it's a good night reader, you sleep really fast. It's called the Elections Administration Security and Integrity White Paper. We actually created a document that outlines all the many, many different security features that we have. And it's written like a white paper format that you're welcome to read, and it's up there. Okay? Okay, so remember what I said earlier? In different levels of things, right? Remember, there are people, facilities, systems, equipment. This one I'm going to start off with is on network, right? Our vote counting system and our voter registration system is on a secure network, okay? And the network itself, it's not just a willy-nilly room that you can just walk in. It is a very protected location, and there are security ways to get in. There are multiple people that have to have permission to get in, and you also have to be the authorized person to get in. Like, just because you're Jane, you can't just walk in and say, I want to look at the system. Even if Mike Fong doesn't, who worked there, don't have an authorization, he doesn't get to go in there. Only authorized people who have business need to be in there. So that's right off the bat. The network is in a high security location. The other one is called cyber hygiene and vulnerability scans. So I will talk a little bit more as well, but our voting system is on an air gap. Does anybody know what an air gap is? It's literally, it's in that word. It's gapped with air, meaning no physical connection. Meaning if I got to go into the voting system for whatever reason, I have to walk up to it and do something with it. It's not like I go on my computer and connect to it. Remember, there is no connection. It is gapped with air, okay? And because it's gapped with air, just to check ourselves, we know what systems we have, and we have what we call a vulnerability scans. So it's like saying, I have 10 computers and we have our, in our voting system, and we have our county said, go find my 10 computers. It's not there, but they check anyways, right? To make sure that they cannot find those 10 computers on the network. The other one is any system that is within the county network, the security patches are always updated. The latest version or software patches are always updated. And most of our softwares are the later version so that we're staying on top of the, I guess, the game or the latest versions and latest patches to make sure that we are always ahead of the game. And as well as on the vulnerability scans and such, we make sure that there are malwares in the background checking or, you know, many type of viruses and things like that. So someone is always checking. Now, bear in mind, even though we have this system in play, We are always talking with our colleagues in our partnerships, right? With the federal, the state, they're letting us know, hey, something happened in this city somewhere, and this is how they got attacked. We go start working on hardening it so that we do not become the victim, right? Or we find out that, oh yeah, someone got into this one system because one person accidentally clicked a link on an email, which you're not supposed to. So we go back into our office, we start announcing to everybody saying, please don't click. You only click on email that you know that is, that coming from someone that you know. You don't just click on emails. And on top of that, we actually seed our county. The county does this. They actually send us a fake email, check to see if we're gonna click. And we remind everybody, don't do it. And if people accidentally do it, we give them a quick training saying, hey, yeah, we noticed you clicked on something that you're not supposed to. Reminder, this is how the bad actors get in. And we use that as an educational tool and as a training, right? And we kind of keep everybody on the toe. Okay. So the other one is our system testing and tracking. Now, our voting system, the way we do this is prior to each election, we have to test it. And we put in a what we call test ballots or test votes, and they are in a pattern. If I say I want to put one vote, one vote, one vote, I expect to see that result in my report afterwards. So typically prior to each election, and it is by rule and by my election law, we have to do what we call pre-logic and accuracy tests. We typically call it pre-lat. Okay, it's a pre-election, right? So we have a bunch of ballots that we made actually using the actual paper and actual ballot information. And we would create pre-marked, it's called test deck, where let's say candidate A get one vote, B get two vote, and then three vote, and one, two, three. And we look for a pattern. And we feed all this in different formats, different machines, different printouts, different scanners, and when we are done with putting it in many, many different ways, we run that report and we expect to see that same pattern. That tells me that when I put in a vote, I got out a vote. Okay? Now, that system testing, I'll go a little bit more to it, but there's another thing called 1% manual recount. Have you heard about that? It's by law. When I say law, folks, it is an election law, or we go by a thing called elections code. This is basically our law, right? This government code, administrative code, many, many codes. We go by a thing called elections code, and that's our law. And by law, we have to do what we call a 1% manual count. After each election, we select 1% of the precincts of each contest, and we do a manual tally. So if this coming election, Sunnyvale City has an election, we take 1% of the Sunnyvale district and we manually count that precinct. If Fremont Union High School district has an election, we take 1% of that precinct and we do a manual count to make sure that what the machine says is what the actual vote says. And we verify that. And that's part of the process. We check ourselves 1%, make sure that everything matches, and then we certified. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go about how we deal with ballots. The other one is our intrusion detection system. In our county, and as you can see, we are Silicon Valley. Our network system is very, very high tech. If somebody who is unauthorized and stick a USB in a laptop, they know. If you go on a website that is not sanctioned, right, or accidental mistype, they know. If you turn on let's say you're working and you turn on your Facebook and you accidentally left it open, somebody will tell me, you've been on the Facebook all day, right? So we know things like that. We check things for, make sure that it's not just out in the open or you're not doing what you're not supposed to be doing, right? So we check ourselves and we do intrusions detection systems where it's another way of saying it's penetration tests. We call it pen test. Some of you who are tech savvy, you might know what that is, where we check our system to see if we can break in or if we can hack in or we can do things that it's not allow us to do. And we check ourselves to make sure. Okay, we do pen tests all the time and make sure that our system is secured. Okay. And the other one is, as I said before, is hardening the network, meaning the switches are not just out in the open. The switches are encrypted. The security server rooms are locked. Um, I don't have it, but bad habit, I keep putting my hand up here. I have a badge that we carry. And every time I go into a room or a secure room, they know that I badged in. If you happen to be working for me and you're not authorized and you badge in, I know that you tried and you were denied, but I know that you tried, right? It's a tracking system. And hardening is you have to be an authorized person to come to do these work, or you have to have a business reason, and you have to have an authorization, and you have to have a level of authorization, meaning you can not come and work for me for 10 days and say, can I have access to your voting system servers? That's not how it works, right? And then, of course, at the voting system, there are many, many other hardening or mitigating factors, such as we put tamper evidence seals, or we put security lock that is called, we call it rip lock, but it's one of those locks that once you take it apart, you cannot put it back together. Or we use tapes that have a design on it that once you cut it, you cannot put it back together so that you see the same design. And the other one is tamper evident. If you rip off a sticker, it leaves residues behind and it tells me it's been voided, right? And then we also have systems that if you try to unplug something or insert something, it breaks itself. Those of you who doesn't know what break means, it freezes, right? Everything stopped working. Or if you pull something out that you're not supposed to, it just stopped working. And only an authorized person or someone who's going to be kind of technical working on it has to be able to go back in. Even then, in any machine in our system during election or voting days that are bricked, technically, I grab that machine, I set it aside, I report it to the Secretary of State's office along with my county. We set that machine aside for a possible audit or an investigation. So we take those steps very, very seriously. So if we have a machine that someone did something even accidental, or, let's say we had a voting machine locked in that room and we sealed it, and we come back next morning, find that the seal's broken, every piece of equipment in there is replaced. And I set it aside to make sure that nothing bad has happened. And we verify. And every piece of equipment that we use, folks, has an audit trail, meaning I push a letter A, it knows that I pushed the letter A. Or I mistyped my password 5 times, it knows that I tried it 5 times. And there are logs that it keeps. And it's by the certification rule. Okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about certification as well. The other one is facilities. I kind of touched upon it already. Physical security assessments, meaning when we have things that are locked up, servers, voting systems, all of these equipment, because they're very sensitive, only authorized people are to go in. They are never brought outside of a secure facility to do any work on it, meaning they always get work done in the secure facility. The secure facility have, again, authorized people, badge access, and all of our voting equipment secure facility have surveillance system where it's keeping an eye on who comes and who goes, right? And to make sure that I don't come in at 10 o'clock at night and doing, secret stuff, or I don't come in on the wrong time that is not business hour. And I remind our staff that even though you're an authorized person, if your work day is not Sunday, don't be here, right? You become kind of under the scrutiny of why are you there? Okay. ID badges, access controls and logs. The other one is, even though I have an ID badge that can go into my server, remember it keeps track of who badged in and who badged out. To get to that room, I got to let my boss know that I'm going to go to that room. And at that room, there are actual staff who are attendant of that room that watches over the workstation that says, oh, Mike Fong, you're here. Someone told me you're coming. Let me sign you in. And always two people, they'll accompany me to do whatever I got to do, and they're watching me, right? In our office, no matter what it is, whether it's a ballot or election equipment or supplies or whatever, there's always what we call a two-people rule. There's always have to be with two people. Even if I'm going across the street to bring a ballot to my other department, I'll grab one of you and say, walk with me across the street until I get to the office. And then I hold the envelope in front of me or side of me in a plain view so that you know that I'm not messing with it, right? Even other things that we have are like memory sticks and stuff. Again, we don't just put it in our pocket, walk around and say, oh yeah, hey, let me bring this out. We don't do that. We just have it in our hand so that you can plainly see as I'm walking around. That way I know that what's in my hand is what I'm using to do our business. Okay. And the other thing that I think it might, can I see the next slide really quick? Okay, I'm gonna go back. So there's one more thing that we do. Remember air gap? If I need information off of that system, like the election results or the counts and things like that, right? We have to literally use a secure thumb drive that is authorized by only us and is in our custody. We use it and take the data off and we put it into somewhere else for, let's say, printing or uploading on a website and for your viewing, right? However, that memory stick get put into this little box that is basically quarantine box. And that stick never get introduced back into the systems again. It only gets used once. From there on, it gets wiped. Those of you who are technically savvy, what we call a low-level formatting or hex formatting, where we basically completely clear out that and we'll use it for something else, but not the voting system, so that that item does not get introduced back into our voting system. Okay, so let's go back to the other one, video surveillance. I touched up on that. We're always making sure that our voting system is secured. And visitors and observers are escorted, meaning even you are, my voters and my public who wants to view this, you can view our voting system. I'll escort you. I'll tell you what they are. I'll tell you how they work. And you can even see how they work in terms of what they're supposed to do. However, there are some things that are, I guess, confidential that I can't show you. You cannot tell me, show me where my server is, because I can't just point it to you, right? Because it's a secret location. However, if you absolutely must see it, there are rules that we can go through. You sign confidential. I can actually show you where they are. Okay, things like that. But you have to go through a lot of protocols, right? And in our voting system too, we have a lot of viewing areas, meaning we make windows so that you can watch us. And there are certain areas, some of you visited me before in my logistics area, even though it's a big cage, it's a locked up cage that you can see through the fencing, but you really just can't be behind there, especially when it's a peak election time. However, outside of that, I can walk you in and show you the equipment, how they're sealed and how they're, dealt with. So that's there, and that's a video surveillance, and that's visitor observers, you know, the escort and support. And of course, I mentioned earlier, tamper evident seals, meaning any voting system have ports that something can be plugged into. They are sealed with a little red tamper evident seal. And then there are other ports or items that needs to be brought back to the election. They're sealed with a different color seal, meaning it's like a one-time open seal that we use at the vote centers. And we look for those and we track those seals, meaning those seals, you can't just buy it anywhere. I have to buy from a vendor that keep track of that serial number and who they sold it to. If you say, can I go buy red tamper evident, you really can't. Or with that serial number or with that logo on it, unless you are the business. So we do that. Now, the process. Because the federal offices are getting more and more involved, and because we are the registrar and your votes are very important, we have been designated as a critical infrastructure by the Homeland Security, which means we get additional resources and supports during the election time and to support our election systems so that it is not easily penetrated. And on top of that, once the Homeland Security gets in, right, the FBI gets involved, Department of Justice, right, Secretary of State, they have their own investigative units. And then within the county, we have our district attorney's office. So we have many, many layers of security that we go through, or at least support services. And these days, some of you may, heard about, the disruption or the bad actors kind of trying to hinder the election process. The law enforcement teams are now getting involved. So We really work closely with our sheriff department and our local police departments for the each city and the district areas. And of course, I mentioned two people rule with ballots or any voting equipment. It's always the case. And pre-election logic and accuracy tests. Again, that's to make sure that what we put in is what we get out. Okay. The other one is called post-election audit to confirm equipment operated correctly. So we make sure that once these machines are done, remember that 1%? That's how we also verify that what we put in this whole time is what we get. And if you need to, you can do what we call request for data. You can see how the ballots were counted. You can see how the ballots were adjudicated. That's another thing. Remember earlier I mentioned how you voted and on the benefit of the voter. We do what we call adjudication, right? These are ballots that we get where you didn't quite fill in the bubble. Some of you like to cross out the bubble. Some of you like to write a novel why you don't like that candidate. Or some of you do a little scratch. Or some of you were in a hurry, you will vote and you go, no, 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 this is not what I want. And you will put cross out on it and you vote something else. And when we see these anomalies, there's two people, remember? We look at the screen independently. We make a decision. What was your intent of the vote? So if we notice that you voted a bubble and a few of them and you got a bunch of cross outs, we can kind of, make a good guesstimate that you meant to change your mind. Or you put scratches on every target. That kind of tells me there wasn't enough information on the bubble, but it means that you did vote on every target that you meant to, but in a different way. And we have what we call adjudication team that does that, who are very detail oriented. And you can see how they basically determine your ballot is. And that is all tracked in the system in terms of digitally and with images. Meaning I can look at, although we don't, right? Because we don't need to. There is a way to look at your image and tell me how you voted and how we decided that your mark was intention or not. And then during the 1% manual recount, we see that because then they go, hey, Mike, I noticed there's one extra vote, but not on the system. And we looked at it that you may have put a little mark or something that wasn't unintended. And then the system saw it as a mark and we make adjustments accordingly. And that's how we are checking ourselves. There was another thing which I mentioned. I'm at a good time. We check ourselves. Everything that we do, someone else is checking our work. The work that she does, I'm checking. The work that I do, my boss checks. After my boss checks, we send it to the Secretary of State. They check all of that information. So it's just one level of check and one level of balance to make sure that the one person can't do all this on their own so that it'll get caught by the next person. Does that make sense? Okay. So the other one is people. The people that you work there, because we are a county government entity, you go through a background check. If you are a lawbreaker, you're not allowed in the club, right? Or if you know, if you've done bad things and stuff like that, typically, right, it's a government entity, right? We make sure that the people we bring in are, you know, good people, right? That way they don't do stuff. The other one is a training on phishing and cybersecurity. We do that with our county training and our in-person training, and we do what we call orientations and onboarding that we teach people. And remember earlier I said about we send emails and we do on the spot education and training, and we pass on information that we get from cybersecurity or you know many different organizations that support security office, and we send that to our staff and they follow that rule. Okay. The other one is staff have access to appropriate areas, meaning if you are working for my team, you may have access to the voting system. But if you're working for another division that does, let's say, social media, you have no need to be in my area. You won't be allowed in there. If you are doing, for example, voter registration, you don't have access to our voting system because you're a different entity than voting systems. So we make sure that only authorized people that have business needs are there. Okay. And of course, we The visitors, the observers identify with unique badges. Even in our own office, we know who are the permanent personnel. We know who are the temporary personnel. We know who are the visitors, who are the business, what we call vendors. They all have little different colored badges, or even during the election, if you, those of you who worked at a vote center before, if you're a lead, you get one badge. If you're a staff, you get another badge. If you're a media, you get another badge, so on. If you're an observer, you get another badge, so that we can easily identify who you are and where you belong. Okay? And a lot of those badges, I don't know if you got to see them, they're different colors. And some of you who volunteered for us in the past, you see us running around with different vests. I know what that color, where they're supposed to be. They just can't be at a place where they don't belong. So that's how we check ourselves. Okay? One more back. This is it. Okay. So that's where I am at. The next few slides are about the myth, and I want to give you a little bit of time. Elenita, who is my logistics operations, will transfer to her, but I want to take a couple of minutes to try and answer questions. However, if the question is going to be really, really long, I'll work with Elaine, or help me work with Elaine to pose your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them through the email, but I'll try to answer you the quick and simple ones right now. That is easy. Hold your thought. Yes. Uh, mic check, mic check.
Votes and release the results. And I think I know the answer, but I think it would be good to share why that timeline seems to be extending.
I'll give you the quick answer. In the past, we were what we call a central count voting system, meaning we have to get all the ballots in our office to count it. But these days, all the ballots are counted at the vote center via a scanner. And in our office, we get mails or ballots in our office that we have to count as they come in. However, believe it or not, on election day, we get approximately 120 to 130,000 mail envelopes. They all need to be checked, verified, signature checked, make sure they're good, because I cannot process, or my whole office cannot process 130,000 at once. It takes a little bit of time. And then there are people that put it in the mail. They take time to get to us. Long as you make it through the election day, any valid ballot are processed. So there's a process. There's another one is, if you forget to sign, or if you put a wrong signature on it, we set your ballot aside and we contact you and say, you didn't sign or your signature don't match, please come fix. And we wait for that affidavit or fix to come in. So it is by design so that every eligible ballot is counted, that we take up to 30 days to certify.
Question because it's in the press. Thank you very much. I'm going to throw in one more question because it was in the press. I
Sure.
don't, you might be anticipating this one. Congressional District 16,
That was fun.
which the ROV got some criticism for, and the counting and the results. And so maybe take a moment and talk about what you learned from that and how processes might be improved.
Absolutely. So that was the first time we had actual machine recount. So remember all those ballots that come in on a major, like a presidential election at one time, we had 80% turnout, 800,000 ballots that came back, whether, good or bad or whatever. We have to process through. Every piece of ballot has a specific precinct number, and they all have to be separated. So when we do recount, we have to go find every piece of ballot because the images don't count. I have to physically find the ballot. And once I find them all, then I would recount that machine. Now, some of the things that you notice, they're off by just 1 or 2 votes, or it keeps switching between 1 and 2, or there's a subject that was brought to me. You might have heard that there were some ballots that was counted during that recount. So I'll talk to you about those 20 ballots in a moment. However, there are ballots that needs to be found and make sure that that's what the count is, and we try to recount. Now, we did find that because we get thousands and thousands of ballot, and there are many, many groups, it takes some time to find every one of those ballots. One thing that we learned, we're going to get better with that. The other one is we wanted to be supportive and try to get that result quickly as possible as opposed to waiting to the end, right? So every time we get result, it changes a little bit or it moves up a little bit or, it kind of moves around a little bit. And we had to make sure that the number that we give is accurately and we found every piece of ballot. That was a challenge. The other one is by, thousands of different processes that ROV do, there are few bound to happen human errors, such as, right, that you might have heard that there were a couple of ballots that got added, well, or a couple of ballots that got, you know, reduced only because maybe it was inadvertently counted twice. And that's where we find ourselves at, oh, hey, this was, because of a jam, it got put in twice for misunderstanding or misinformation or, the instruction, we might have introduced it. So we have better way of checking ourselves now. So from learning from this, every time we process batches of ballots now, we're going to verify that that batch is a good number verified, or if it was accidentally overcounted or undercounted, we would know. So that's added. Now, there was a subject that somebody said, hey, what happened with those ballots that you found? Or at the end, there was about 20 or so ballots that got added. It is actually not a found ballot. They were ballots in our office. It's just that at one point they weren't counted or they weren't pegged to be counted. Only because by rule, when you apply for that particular application, you have to let us know that you're a citizen, that you have to mark that I'm a citizen, I'm re-registering to vote. So because the voters either didn't get a chance to do it or forgot about it, they didn't mark that. So if you don't mark that, your ballot is not valid. Okay? But what we found out during the process is that, let's say I did that, right? I didn't mark it. However, I did somewhere in that time frame re-register vote online. Or I may have mailed in a card or mailed in a form that I actually put, I am a citizen, right? So we're like, oh, there might have been other ways and venues that a person might have re-registered that would have made those envelopes valid. So we went and checked it multiple times, all the way up to the certification time, or during the recount, we found that there was about 20 or so. Few are just, the way they sign, it just didn't match, but most of them, we found out that they did re-register to vote and they did verify that they are citizen. So because of that fix, we were able to count that. Now, learning from that, we're going to take every minute of that 30 days during the certification to make sure if someone did not mark their envelope properly, we keep checking to see if there's a registration that they might have done in another format that we can verify. So we do learn, we rewrite the procedures and we try to refine the process. It happens. And, at one point, it was only like 2, 3 votes, right? Wow. You know what's crazy? That's between 2 counties,
Wow.
not just one county. It is that close between 2 counties, and that's really high, crazy probability. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Mike. Wow, everything you presented is really great. I have a higher confidence in the security of our elections from the time the ballot arrives. You told me that the county does nothing to verify that the person who filled out the ballot is a citizen, and you said it's the law.
Correct.
Which law?
There is an election code,
Do you know the
right?
code number?
I can get that for you if you like. There is a code that says we do not ask for
It's so the
ID or
law,
we don't verify things like that.
it specifically says do not.
It does not say that. It's just basically saying, we take the registration under the penalty of perjury. There is no wording that says don't check per se, right? Because laws are written specifically. But it is under the law that we don't ask or we don't verify. It is, we take it on the penalty of perjury word that you sign that document that you are telling the truth and honest, that everything you filling in there is under the penalty of perjury. And that's on that premises, we take those voter registration and we do not check for citizenship.
Yeah. I'm a little worried that we have an
Absolutely.
excellent security system
Absolutely.
that's protecting ballots that should not be there.
Okay.
Okay.
There is one thing that I want to give you that though. Understandable that they are worried that, there might be bad actors out there or people voting that shouldn't be voting. However, we do check our voting system and there is like a reporting where, for example, if you didn't vote and you saw that your ballot got counted, there is a reporting process that says, hey, I didn't vote. Why do you have a ballot that accounted for me? Kind of looking at all those different cases and reporting, we actually don't have a systemic issue. Meaning, there are a few people that may try to break a law and we find it, or when we get a report, we do investigations and we find that, oh, yeah, the wife, typically the one that we find actually is the wife signing for the husband, right? Because it was so easy, right? Or the wife and the husband like kind of switch ballots or things like that. But outside of that, we do not have a systemic issue, meaning it's not to a point of where I have so many people doing this. Even some of the frauds are inadvertent. Believe it or not, folks, a lot of people forget that they send in a ballot and they're not sure that it came to the ROV. So they go to the vote center and say, I want to vote again, right? Now, we will catch you if we got your ballot already. But if we didn't have, if we did not receive it yet through the post office system, we will count yours. And when we find your envelope, that envelope won't be counted. Okay? Now, if you happen to accidentally vote it twice, okay, again, not systemic, we take your name and send it to the district attorney's office. We let them know that you voted twice. Now, most of the time, majority of the time is inadvertent and it's not systemic. However, I have seen cases, somebody from like San Mateo County, because they own a house here, they came and vote here and they were caught and prosecuted. There was someone I remember, I want to say San Mateo, I believe it was San Mateo. Somebody literally 2 days later came and voted at Santa Clara County because they had a house here. I believe he was prosecuted. And to make sure that this is kind of doesn't become a habit, the laws have actually gotten a little bit more stricter too. A lot of election related law used to be misdemeanors, right? Some of these days now, the laws are becoming on a low level felonies. So they want to make sure that, you know, you don't try to interfere. Okay, I do want to give this time to Ellen. Oh, okay, one more. Hi.
One last question. Thank
Sure.
you. Ava Chow. I live in
Hi,
Cupertino.
Eva.
Um, I think it was the last election, and I don't remember if the mail truck
Ah.
that was on 17. I don't know if it was
Yes.
heading to Santa Clara County or Santa Cruz County, but there was a whole bunch of ballots there. The
That's
news
okay.
article didn't give much like what happened to those ballots, and if that was to happen again, like what would happen in terms. I just kind of want to find out what the resolution.
Sure. So those of you who heard there was ballots on side of the freeway. So to make the long story short, a mail truck got broken into. Someone grabbed a whole bunch of mail that is at Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County. Packages, letters, birthday cards, all sorts of mail. So what they did is they went through majority of them and they threw it on the side of the freeway. So we got report of the, not just the ballot, because ballot was the subject. However, there were packages, because I went there to investigate it. There were packages, other mails. There was like a whole bunch of mails. Basically, a truck got broken into. So we did get notified. We work with the postal inspectors, right? Because all of the investigation has to be done first. We did manage to get all of those ballots. We did notify the people of the ballots that we got that we can identify. We gave them an opportunity to either come and fix or verify, or for the most part, we were able to count their ballots because we were able to see all of the targets. We processed them. So it happens occasionally. Things like truck being broken into or the mailboxes being broken into, or sometimes when you hear something that is really outlandish or really out there, check. Don't just take the word. Have you all heard that there were ballots in the water in the bay? About 10 years ago? San Francisco Bay? Oh my goodness. There was a whole thing that there was ballots in the bay. Actually, it was not ballots. They were the stubs. that San Francisco County were cleaning house and all blew into the bay. But they were a bunch of stubs, and somebody go, "Oh my God, there's ballots in the bay." I'm like, they were not ballots, right? So sometimes you just say things that sounds nice and eye-catching or ear-catching, but please check, because there's no way we would be so reckless that there are ballots in the bay, right? Because we take our job very seriously. Okay, saying that, folks, you sure? I can talk about volunteer work too, so go ahead. What's your question?
The rules and how you follow them, your processes and procedures for
Yes.
Santa Clara County
Yes.
are fabulous. What about all the other counties in the state?
Well, I'll speak for my county. However, I can, to a small degree, speak for my colleagues. Remember, I'm the election official, right? We talk to our colleagues all the time. We share information, we share procedures, we share documents, we share process. Even though they may have different voting system, the fundamental election law and process is the same. So remember I said we do 1%? So do they. We have a pre-lat, so do they. They have, we have our red little stickers that temper evident. They might have a different type of seal that they use that is a evident type. They do have their process. And all the other county, we all follow the same elections code. We do. But of course, procedures are a little bit different, or the divisions are a little bit different, where I can't speak for that because I don't know that. But for the most part, everybody try to be the best that they do their work, because that's our job, right? That's our career. And that's what I'm here to give you, your right, you're exercising your right. Hi.
Hi. So, one question I have is, how do you find out if someone's vote is missing versus they never voted? Like, what's the source of truth to say that, somebody has not voted versus they voted, but their, vote went missing?
That's different. I will not know if somebody did not vote it, right? However, there are ways to help you. If you currently, because all of you get a ballot right off the bat, right at the election, go sign up what we call Track My Ballot. Go sign up, because if you actually get it and you sign it and feed it back into the postal system, it keeps track that it's going through the system, it arrived at ROV, and then you can check whether ROV got it or not and whether it counted or not, okay? If it counted, great. If it didn't get counted, you can either call our office or we'll call you and say, hey, your signature didn't match, come fix it. Or you forgot to sign it, come fix it. Or to a certain degree, right? If there is something crazy where we'll tell you why it didn't count, you have an opportunity to fix it. That's why we need time before the certification. You have the opportunity to fix it. However, there are some things that you do that you cannot fix. If you overvote, you cannot say, I want to fix that. Especially in primary. If you vote for a candidate and go, hey, my candidate dropped out, I want to change to a new one, you can't, because once you drop a ballot, you drop the ballot. Okay? I had two more? Oh, boy. Ellen will, you're right. Ellen needs to, hi.
Hi, sorry, this is super specific and sorry, this is so specific, but
It's okay.
my husband
It's
is
okay.
my husband is visually impaired.
Sure.
His signature never matches his ballot. What do I do about that? Just do I have to take him to the ROV like every time to verify?
You don't.
Okay.
Believe it or not, we go through a signature or writing training classes. No matter how your husband signs, there is what we call a tell. He'll have that swoosh or dot or slash or little thing that he does. We are taught to read that. But if you, like me, my full name is Michael, right? My legal signature is Michael. But when I'm in a hurry, it's Mike Fong. When I'm in front of a Safeway and somebody's bugging at me, it's a chicken scratch, right? So we always say, please sign how you sign on a registration form. And also, if you sign in front of that Safeway, that becomes your new signature. you have an opportunity to come to fix the signature anytime, but your husband would have had a little swoosh or a little hiccup or thing that he does that when we look at his signature, we can tell. It is truly different when he does his chicken scratch versus his signature, right? And the other thing too to help you is, do you know if he vote at home or at a vote center? At home? Okay. So you have the envelope where he signs. A lot of those things are written in red so that when we scan the signature, we eyeball every signature, folks. There is no electronic checking. Somebody's eyeballing every signature. We put it in the red, which doesn't get scanned. We could clearly see that signature. So you don't have to fix it every election unless you change. Chicken scratch make it hard for us to determine, right? Because it looks really bad and my initial is M. So no chicken scratch. There was a second question. Yes, sir.
So, Mike, I have a huge respect for what the ROV in Santa Clara County does. But to follow up on the Marin's question, to what extent, even though the procedures, the official policies are the same across the state of California, to what extent can counties with few resources match your level of security? And really have to expand this question to cover the whole of the country.
So for the whole county, or at least for the whole state itself, we remember I told you that we talked to all of our colleagues that are every ROV and managers, because I'm not ROV or AROV just yet, but I'm a manager, but I'm very involved. We talk to each other and we help to support creating bills, or we talk to the state level, or we talk to the federal level, we talk to the lawmakers, we talk to different groups that we try to get things like grant funding or additional funding or election reimbursement so that when a county needs the same level of security, they get supported as well. There are some grants and funding that are made for counties that don't have, let's say, major resources like I do, right? Where some counties are only like 30 precincts. That is, all of you can run an election. Where my county, right, 1 million voters. LA County, 12 million voters. LA County is so big, the city do their own election because there's so much, right? And because they have a different budget than we do, what we do is we talk to the counties, the state, even the feds and say, hey, we need to do this. Can we get help? And for the most part, they do give us help to do the work, but it's always at the very tight budget, right? We want to have what we call an ideal world, but they always go, nope, cut it down a notch or two. We'll give you absolutely what you need, but we cannot give you what we call an ideal world, right? So we do get resources. It's just that every so often, we just got to keep pushing our lawmakers and our higher ups to make sure that they give us the resources so that we give a secure voting process.